Sorry about that. My Zoom updated and they changed the buttons. I had to figure out how to start recording. Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning. And I'm glad that you're here. In the chat, we had, started with questions about resolutions. And this is the first year that I actually, because usually I do make a New Year's resolution and it's usually about health and fitness. And this year I didn't, because I feel like I've actually been in a pretty good place and I just want to keep what I'm doing. But when Yvonne and I mapped out our topics for these talks, this was one that we planned for January because it's kind of a good, the start of a new calendar year, and really like not so much like New Year's resolution, but like finding you and like finding like what like makes you happy. And so that's our topic today. And the idea with this topic is like for us as adults to find what makes us happy, but then hopefully our kids follow our example and that we are set a good model for them. So Ms. Gunter, do you want to get us really started?
Yes, definitely. So I really like this topic because I think growing up, I didn't realize I had a spark, which, you can interchangeably use the word passion even. I didn't realize that I had passion for certain things. I used to get really frustrated in high school, especially when people would constantly ask you, like, what are you going to do when you get older? What do you want to be? What's your major going to be? Like all these things that I had no idea. And so because I had no idea, I felt very, I guess, alone in it because a lot of people knew what they wanted to do. And I was like, I have no idea. I like makeup. I like boys. Like, I don't know how to put that all together to like build a life out of it. And one of the things I've learned as I've gotten older is that I have had a passion for people. My parents said I talk too much, and my husband thinks I'm nosy because I ask people in the store, how they're doing. And he never understands like how by the time I check out of the grocery store, I've learned about their divorce and, their family dynamic and all these things. And it's because I really like love to know everything about people and what makes them tick and if they're okay and what's going on in their life. And so being a social worker for me is like the perfect job because I get to do those things and have like a reason behind it. I'm not just like the nosy person that wants to know everything. And I like, why do I want to know? And it's like, I always wondered if I could potentially help. And going way back a long time ago, I kind of figured out where that spark came from for me. And, people always ask, like, why did you become a social worker? And I always had this answer of like, oh, because I struggle with my own depression. But when I look really far back, I actually grew up, my family owned a care home, and we lived in this really long duplex over here in East San Jose. And we housed 20 Vietnam veterans who either had severe PTSD or schizophrenia, were very mentally ill. And I actually lived on the premises where my mom took care of them all. And so every day I would go with her and we would deliver medication and talk to them and just like spend time with them. And thinking back, I'm like, that's a very bizarre way to spend your youth. But it really developed this passion for me to help people. And so, not everybody has an opportunity to find the things that they're passionate about. And sometimes they do, and they don't realize it until they're as old as I am that they are passionate about something. But again, for me, it's like, I want to know everything about everyone. I want to know what makes people feel alive and what's happened in their past that's impacted them and what their goals are and how they feel. So when you talk about passion, passion is a result. Passion is energy. It's the feeling you have when you're engaged in something that you truly love. And I know as parents, it's easy for us to find passion in our children. Like, I'm passionate about raising my kids and making sure that they grow up to be, successful and happy. And, I can say a lot that that's my passion, but I think it's important to note that, especially since I have a kid who's going away to college next year, I keep telling my husband, like, oh my gosh, in 6 years, we might not have any kids here. What am I going to do with myself? And so more than ever, I'm really trying to find the things for me that keep me going, that move me forward, that get me excited about every day. Like I still don't know what I'm going to do when they're not here and I don't have anyone to cook for, all those things. Going back to social work, when you're getting your master's degree, they have you do an internship. And for me, I had 3 years of an unpaid internship. And what struck me as really strange is that every day I would come home and be like, that was like the coolest thing ever. And I don't even get paid for it and I don't care. And so now that that's in my career, when I get my paycheck, I feel that same way of like, I truly cannot believe that I get paid to do this, to spend time with kids and get to know them. And so for me, like finding that spark, like my hope is that everybody can find a path or even a career that makes them feel that way. And I tell kids it all the time. They'll say like, my mom really wants me to go into the medical field or into engineering, but I'm really passionate about, psychology or art or whatever. And it's so hard as a parent to like push them to follow their passions, but also thinking about, okay, what's lucrative, what's ideal, like what can you really survive on. But just note too that your spark doesn't necessarily have to be your career. It's nice if it is, but that's not what happens for everybody. So I want to start with talking about our passions, our sparks, what we enjoy doing. And some of you might already know what that is. Somebody or everybody might already know like, hey, I know I love to do this. I know this is my thing, but I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And it would be super helpful if you would put responses in the chat. You could even send them to Ginny if you wanted them to be anonymous. Because I just want to share like how people answer these questions. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can just write it down on a piece of paper for yourself. But I'm going to run through a list of questions. And if you want to say them out loud, that's great too. Ginny, if you want to share yours, I will totally share mine as well. But there's about 9 questions here. And it's really, truly about finding, what is my spark? What do other people think my spark is? What really gets me going in the morning? And the first question is basic. What are some things that you are really interested in?
You want me to answer?
Yeah, of course.
Things that I am really interested in. Well, I love to read. Specifically, I'm a sucker for romance novels, not even gonna lie. Like over Christmas break, the Bridgerton series, like I loved it. I read all the books. I actually binged twice because I like finished it. And I'm like, oh, that was so good. I gotta watch that again. So that I love that.
That's awesome.
It's a total distraction for me.
No, that's great.
I don't like a lot of angst and drama in my books. I like happy endings and people in love. That's what I like.
I love it. Virginia says finding out why. Do you want to expound on that at all, Virginia? Like the why in other people, the why in yourself, the why in the universe?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm headed down the same field you are, social work. And it's always been why? Why do people act this way? Why is their behavior this way? And I'm always wanting to dig for like, well, what is your past like? Let me find out why, and because a lot of people don't realize that their behavior is a result from something, in the past. And until you like figure that out, and my mind is always figuring out why is this happening? There has to be a reason. There has to be a trigger. Why? So that's always been my passion, my flame. Like I want to know why.
And you're definitely on the right track because it's like you're like the Sherlock Holmes of like the mind. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm dealing with right now with my student. He for a while has shaking in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting here thinking, why could this be? Could it be medication? Could it be a concussion he had? Why? Sitting here trying to think why. There has to be a reason. I hate when, they just say, well, let's just try medication. No, there's a reason why. There's something that's triggering this. Let's find out why. So that's just something. And I use it at work. I use it, at home with the kids. And it's just always my wanting to find out why, which is why I want to get into this field. Um, trying to figure out why and helping others find out. Because a lot of times it helps people to realize why.
Yeah.
And I find that very fulfilling.
Yeah.
I love that question. Yvonne knows that, like, that's actually one of my favorite questions. Like, what is your why? And as principal, I start every August with our back to school message to the staff, with what is your why? Like, why do you teach what you teach? Like, why did you choose this career? And I really encourage all the teachers to start, like, on the first day of school, starting when they meet their students for the first time, to explain their why to their students. Actually, just like I send an email out to all the parents every Sunday night, I send an email out to the staff every Sunday night. And this Sunday, I actually asked them that question, like, remember what your why is. I know it's hard right now with distance learning, and that this school year is, we're making the best of it as we can. Like, as parents, we're all making the best of it as can, but this is not the ideal. This is not the way we want school to be. So refresh yourself on, like, what is your why? Like, why are we doing this?
I love when you put that in the newsletter, because when I feel the least motivated, that's when I really truly have to go back to my why. Like, oh yes, I do love this. And I do, it does get me out of bed in the morning and I feel good about it. And I think that's, something that we all could use right now.
And there's always a why, and just really making people think about it is amazing, because some people just don't sit there and think about why. And a lot of people will ask me, why do you do so many things? Well, let me show you, because I've always wanted to be a teacher, but I realized that what teachers get paid is not going to let me live comfortably. So I volunteer, and I do teaching like as a volunteer, but it fulfills my passion. And so when people ask me, well, why do you do this? And it's like, well, I have a reason why for everything. So, and a lot of people just kind of, well, I don't know, I just do it. No, there's a reason. There's something that triggers you to want to do it.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty cool.
So and again, you guys don't have to share out loud, but I really want you to just share with yourself is, what is something that you're really good at? That's a hard one for me. I'm like, I like party planning. Like, that's kind of my thing. I love, like, putting events together. Something that I'm good at, and then people will ask me to do for them. So that's something that I like to do, or that I think I'm good at.
I'm good at cooking. I'm a good cook. And I think I'm good at being organized and on top of things, which is, I need to do that for my job. So that's good. But I'm pretty, like, organized, and I've got all my to-do lists, and, like, I know what I have to do. And
yeah. This next question I find very interesting, because I had to really think about it, but it's, what do others look to me for? And I think mine is like advice. Mine's not like a recipe. Nobody would look to me for a recipe, but I would say advice. So what is something that people look to you for?
Yeah, I get a lot of advice type, from my daughter. Like, she definitely will come to me like, how should I handle this? I have, staff members that come and, like, what should I do in this situation? So
Virginia says guidance and advocacy. And then shout out to Mrs. Davis. Yes, you are on top of everything. We know that and we appreciate it. Yes, we do. That's what I look to you for, to, like, tell me what's going on. What is something that you do where you lose all track of time?
Scrolling on my phone on social media. I got sucked into Instagram and, like, this couple that does renovation videos the other day. my husband came and he's like, what are you watching? And I'm like, I don't even know, but I've been like, I looked at the clock and I'm like, I literally have been doing this for 2 hours. And I just got so sucked into watching these like random videos on social media. Somebody's got their hand up. Harjinder?
Sorry, by mistake.
Oh, okay, no problem. Don't worry.
I was like, oh, I've been getting sucked into Pinterest, and not just because my husband works there, but because like renovations, organization, like just all these. And so I was like, why am I really crazy about it? It's like, I think I like the idea of like new and fresh ideas. And so it sucks.
Yeah,
me
that was
in.
like when it was home renovation like videos, and I was like, oh, that looks so awesome. That's so nice. Look at that.
Totally. So those are things, and of course it's like, I'm not gonna like be an architect, and that's not what's like my spark or whatever, but it's like these are things that interest me, and like how do we put them all together? I'm just gonna ask one more question. When in your life do you feel the happiest? What are you doing during those times? You know what's interesting is just bringing up like COVID and the quarantine this year, how that has shifted for me. Like before it was like going out and hanging out with my friends and this and that, and now it's like being at home with my kids. I was telling somebody yesterday, like I will never have this time again with them, especially with my older one. And we literally have been attached at the hip since March. And in the beginning, it was a bit of a struggle, but it's like we've done puzzles, we've gone for walks, we did a garden, we've done all these things that I would have probably never done. And as much as this year has been a real challenge, I think looking back, like that's going to be a really happy time for me. If just like being with them, and I was watching old home movies of them and like seeing when they were young and how time passed, and so I was like all emotional about it. But I'm like, how fortunate am I right now to be able to spend extra time with them amidst this like not wonderful year?
I think for me, when I think about like when am I my happiest, I think it's, and it kind of goes with that whole organization thing. It's when everything is like put away and there's not chaos in the house. The kids are like happy and like content and like doing their thing. Like I know, like I love Christmas and I love the Christmas decorations, and believe me, I go crazy decorating my house, but it's like so cluttered. And so after Christmas, when we put everything away, we did it on December 27th. So we put our tree up really early this year. And so we took it down because it was really dry. So December 27th, with that day, we just like put everything away. And then like afterwards, and like the house is clean and everything's put away. And I'm like, oh, this is such a nice feeling. Like, this is like, I feel so calm. So that, it's just like when everything is copacetic and like everybody, like there's not chaos. I get very uncomfortable when there's unknowns, and like, we know that's, I think back, you talk about the pandemic, like the hardest part of the pandemic for me was really in the beginning, when school shut down and there were no answers of like, are we coming back to school? And everybody's looking at me like, are we coming back to school? And I'm like, I don't know, because I really am uncomfortable with not having answers. And that was a period where it was very, very uncomfortable because I didn't have any answers and I didn't know what to tell people. And I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, anxiety is like really based in the unknown. And so, like you said, in the early part of the pandemic, for me, I wasn't even thinking about work. I was thinking about like, how is this virus spreading? And should I really be bleaching all of my groceries right now? Like that was my anxiety of like that unknown. And like you said, like I feel the calmest and the happiest when things are settled, things are known, things are predictable. It's that like chaos of the unknown that has been, the biggest challenge this year. But just reflecting on it, like this year has been such a teachable moment for all of us into like what's important, what we really truly need. And the reason I start this with what our passions are is because again, they're so easy to forget when we're completely busy and chaotic with the kids. And I don't know about you guys, I'm cooking like 3 meals a day and cleaning up, and it's been a lot. And so it's easy to forget about myself when I'm doing all these things for everybody else. And I really, truly think that modeling your spark and modeling the importance of your spark is one of the hugest things that we can do to show our kids that their passions are important. And I'm going to run through a quick presentation about, our teenagers and sparks and why they're important and how to help support them through that. And, and also the big question of what if my kid has like a bizarro spark? Like, what if all they want to do is play video games and watch anime? Like, and we'll talk a little bit about that too, because I think we don't want to put pressure on them. Like, ooh, that's really what you do? How are you gonna make a career out of it? And learning how to really look into those bizarre or different or maybe worrisome even passions that our kids have. Ginny laughs. You know who you're thinking of. Okay, so let me.
Do you need me to? I think I have to allow you to share. Hold on. There you go.
You know what? I don't think I'm going to share it just because it's all
Okay.
messed up on my screen, but can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what is a spark? Again, it's a special quality or skill or interest that lights us up, that we're passionate about. And it's something that comes from the inside of us. And when we talk about it or when we do it, we feel, joyful and energetic. One of the quotes is, it's our very essence, the thing about us that is good and beautiful. And a lot of times our spark is something that can be useful to the world or useful to the people we love or just useful to our community. So thinking back to when you were a teenager, and remember, sparks change, passions change. When I was a teen, I thought I was going to be a nurse. And that was something I was always reading, like medical stuff. And then I realized I was a hypochondriac and didn't want to do that. So they change. When I was a teenager, I loved playing sports. I didn't end up being a professional athlete, obviously, but what it did for me is it kept me busy. It kept my body and my mind healthy. It kept me out of trouble. I always think back to, I was in grad school and I met this guy much younger than me. And I asked, he was telling a story about how he grew up in, South Central and really rough neighborhood. Most of his high school friends ended up in prison and, doing drugs and things like that. And I asked him, like, what was it that set you apart? How did you avoid that? And he said, for me, it was soccer. I had a coach that I loved. I loved playing. I was so passionate about it. And so for him, it's like his spark saved him and put him on a path that most of the people in his neighborhood weren't able to do. And so, sparks are something that can keep us kind of more on the straight and narrow, keep us motivated and away from things that could be, detrimental or unhealthy for us. And then the next question is, were there adults involved in leading and supporting and encouraging your participation in this activity? And for me, it was like coaches were really like an essential part of my youth. They were really helpful for me. And so thinking about when you were a teen, who were the people that you were inspired by? Who were the people that you were most motivated by? My volleyball coach was amazing. And she was awesome because she would like talk to us about like real life stuff. And, I really took to her. And so when I look back at like, what kept me going and moving forward all the time, it was her. And so, as parents, it's providing our kids with opportunities to interact with other healthy adults, other healthy people, because this, being a parent isn't something that we can always do alone. Maybe there's somebody in your family that shares a passion with your kid that maybe you can, push them to spend more time together or talk to each other about it. Ginny, when you were a teen, what was your thing?
I don't know. I'm like sitting here thinking, I'm like, did I have a thing? I don't know if I had like anything that I was really super into. Certainly not anything that, was healthy for me. I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I actually knew what I wanted to do as a career. Like, honestly, I knew in second grade that I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't really like think about like going on and being an administrator and being a principal, but I knew like I wanted to work in a school. And so that's actually been hard as a parent with my daughter, and because she knows that I knew really early in my life what I wanted to do, like she feels like she needs to know. And she's like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I'm running out of time. And I'm like, no, you've got your whole life. Like, there's no like time limit on this. Like people, she and I had a conversation not too long ago about people change their careers. It's okay. You can start and go to school for one thing and then change your mind and do something else. Like that's okay.
Absolutely. No, I think that's, I had decided I was going to be a stay-at-home mom and then I was like, ooh, I don't know that that's totally for me, and ended up switching gears. My husband went to school to work for the FBI and did it for like 6 months and hated it, and switched to business and fully loves it. So, I mean, everything changes. When we talk about teens and their sparks, there's generally like 3 types of sparks. And the first one is something that they're good at, a talent or skill. And I like that there's 3 because some of us don't have like a real like standout talent or skill. People would be really, really good at something. And I would say that I'm pretty good at most things, but I'm not excellent at any one thing. So, one type of spark could be something that you're good at. The next one could be just something that you care really deeply about, such as the environment or serving the community. For my kids, I started fostering kittens, and it was something that I like to do. It was fun. And it just, for 2 of my 3, it became something that they like obsessed over, like loved like helping build their personality and get them comfortable so that they can find a permanent home. And that's been really fun to watch. Currently, my youngest has decided that when he grows up, he's going to start a cat hotel. And I tried to explain to him that most cats can stay home alone, but he doesn't believe me. So we might be switching gears on that one. So something that you're good at, something that you care deeply about, or a quality they know is special, meaning like caring for others, being a friend, being someone that people lean on, being the person that gives advice. So those are 3 different types of spark you can see. And I think it's important that we're kind of looking for these things in our kids, and not to like pressure them in any way, but just to help. You'll hear me use the word spark champion. And a spark champion is essentially a adult that supports these passions in teenagers.
So I think for me, when I was a teenager, now I've been thinking about it, like one thing that I've always been really passionate about is things like civic engagement and politics. When I was a senior in high school, that's when the Rodney King protest happened. That's, to age myself, that's I was a senior in high school when that happened. And that really, I think I was interested in stuff like that before, but that really like sparked something in me that it's been just a lifelong passion. I mean, I majored in political science. I was a government teacher, and I see it now in my kids and their passion, for that, yesterday where like all the chaos is happening in Washington. My daughter's watching the news with me. This past summer, she participated in Black Lives Matter marches, so like, that's something that like has like my passion about that has like fostered, and now like my kids have that same passion.
That's awesome. I wish I could say that my kids share mine. I've been talking to Ethan about, what he's passionate about and, what he's planning on majoring next year when he goes to college and all these things. And we're like the polar opposite. Like, it's funny because I've probably spent more time with him than my husband's been able to due to work and stuff, and how his likes align so closely with my husband's. Like, he's excited about economics and politics, and he plays this game on his phone that's essentially an app where you get fake money and you basically play the stock market. Like, those are all things that I would never be interested in at all. And so, see, like, just watching your kids develop these passions, like that we grew these like tiny adults, and they're like have their own opinions and their own thoughts and their own passions, like for me has been really exciting. I never wanted to push them to do what I do. I always wanted to push them to like be able to empathize with people and things like that. But just watching them kind of find their own thing and, doing my best to support that, even during the ones that I'm not, like the video game thing that I'm not super crazy about, has been kind of really cool just to watch them grow up. I have a list here, and it's basically like different ideas that, for people who maybe don't have a spark, like, you know, are you interested in animal welfare, athletics, reading, leading people, nature, science, politics, health stuff, art stuff, I mean, anything that really gets you going can be your spark. So when you're talking about youth and their spark, there's usually adults who support their spark. And sometimes that's us as a parent, sometimes it's coaches, sometimes it's teachers. But what happens is students who have an adult that supports their spark are more likely to have a sense of purpose, to be socially competent, physically healthy, more likely to volunteer, can even see an improvement in grades. Mood could be higher, attendance in school could be better. Just feeling supported in general, I think is the key. And even again, when your spark is something that maybe nobody else truly understands, and just being the adult for them that listens. I was going to play a video, but I don't think we'll have time, but it was basically talking about listening and how to best listen to your kid, and how to listen even when you're not totally in agreement with what they're saying. And, you know, I think I've said this strategy many, many times of you know, the guide I use in talking to my kids is when they're talking to me, like really, truly listening, like actively listening, and like focusing on what they're saying, reframing what they're saying, asking questions about it. And then I ask them, do you want me to just listen to you? Do you want me to offer you advice? Or do you want me to be outraged and mad at the same person you are? Like, what is it that you need from me? And I've noticed since I started practicing that over the years, that I get a whole lot more information than if I'm just trying to interject and give my opinion and give advice right off the bat. And you'd be surprised that when you do that, how many times they actually will ask for advice. And advice that's, you know, that's asked for is much more easily received than advice that we're just kind of putting on them. So something just to think about and to practice, of like really truly listening and what that means. It says young people who know their spark and have several adults to support them are less likely to experience depression and engage in acts of violence towards other people. I think it's about learning how to respect your community and just having the capacity to just look at the big picture, look at the community as a whole, and being a part of that. I think that's something that can come from, you know, having a spark that you're supported by.
I think with that, and this is something I've had to learn in the past year as a parent, is also to pay attention to when that thing your kid is passionate about can go too far. And like, it's, you know, I'm just thinking about like when my daughter with her, I certainly have mentioned before that, you know, back when we were doing sports, she was a wrestler, and, you know, very good wrestler, and like was really passionate about it. And it got to the point that it was just really kind of consuming her, and her goals, and like putting these expectations on herself of achieving these goals with wrestling. And she had kind of a devastating end to her season last year and didn't achieve her goals. And she and I think it was, what day did we go on a walk? I feel like it was New Year's Day. She and I went on a walk and we were talking, and she was just talking about like that just really wasn't good for me. Like, you know, and like she's still like 9-10 months later recovering from, and like having to accept that she didn't make these goals. And especially now, you know, where it's like there's not gonna be a season, like she's not expecting like it's gonna happen this year, and she's a senior in high school, like it's done, like this part of her life ended in failure, and she's having to accept that. And I just, like, in hindsight, I just wish, like, I don't want to say I was pushing her, but I felt like at the time that I was like supporting what she wanted, you know, that she wanted to qualify for state and like, you know, do this. And like, I just kind of wish in hindsight that I had not, you know, there's a balance, because you want to support their dreams, but you also want to like make it okay if they don't have it. And so I wish we had had conversations at the time about, well, what happens if you don't reach that goal? And, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Because during that time, that's probably not a conversation that she wanted to have, not even the thought of not doing it, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's always that fine line of parenting of like being supportive, being, realistic, I'm sure she could have done it, but she didn't. And having that plan for when it doesn't work out. I don't know about you, but I've noticed when I say things like, my son applied to a bunch of total reach schools for him. And I know that, I think he knows that, but I can't say that because he's like, you don't believe in me. I'm like, well, let's say you don't get into UC San Diego, which is your number one pick. Like, what would be another alternative? And he's like, you don't believe in me. And I'm like, no, I do, but I want to make sure that we have a plan in the event that it doesn't work. Because even the most qualified people might not get in, right? Maybe there's no space or whatever is, what I say. And he gets kind of upset about it. And so it's like, what's the right thing to do? Do you speak realistically and hope they accept it? Or do you just kind of watch it play out and be there when they fall, And I think all of our kids are different, but it is important to acknowledge that. Like, what would have been different had you and Hannah made a plan? Would it have been different? I don't know. Would she have even listened to you? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and it's a hindsight now. I mean, like, who can say? But yeah, I think that, yeah, just like, that you want to support them. I know, I never thought I was going to be like that parent that was like pushing. And like, I kind of like look back now and I'm like, God, was I that parent? Like,
And then it's hard too when your kid is good at something, right? Like my oldest was an excellent baseball player and then decided that he didn't want to play. And I was like, you might want to go back one day and you're going to miss a year. And sure enough, in high school, he went back and played. And, of course, he could have been better had he stuck with it. And it's like, do you push? Do you not? How, what does support look like when it comes to their passions? And I think it hurt me thinking that his passion changed more than it hurt him. And so how do you get like not emotionally involved in it, but be able to be supportive? Like, I don't even have the answers for that. I'm still learning, with each kid, I'm learning something different, and there's no real right or wrong way. I think we know our kids best, and, we know how to support them, but just being open and listening and being there for what they need in that moment. And I mean, that's all we can really do, right?
Yeah, I think I like what Virginia says that 2020 has taught so many people so many different things. I totally agree. I mean, I think that one thing that it's taught me is I have to make my own like health a priority for me, and so that's why at the beginning, like I talked about, like I didn't make New Year's resolutions every year. I always like, I'm going to start working out, I'm going to eat healthy and blah, 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 blah. And I didn't do that this year because I have been working out. Like I just want to keep it up. But like, it was something that I realized for myself. And it started with, because my daughter, she had wrestling and she like fell into like this major depression. I mean, it was very bad. And so it kind of started with like, oh, I'm going to set an example for her and hopefully she'll start getting back into working out. Well, 6 months later, she went on a walk with me last week. So where we're at with that. But that was good. But,
she didn't take to the bike. She wasn't into it.
No, and it honestly, like, and she told me, she's like, well, you and dad are like so into the bike and the Peloton that just makes me not want to do it. So it's like her own teenage rebellion that I'm just letting her have, like, whatever. But so like when I realized like, well, this isn't working, like getting her into it, but like, I was like, I kind of don't care. Like, I need it for me. Like, it's good for me. And so, like that's part of like setting examples for kids, like, like hopefully they find a spark and maybe they'll catch it, at some point. But even if they don't, if it's something that's good for you as the parent and your own personal self, like your own self-care, do it. That's really important.
Like you said, like my kids have been in the house all the time. I've been trying to encourage. We literally live, I can see Alum Rock Park from my house. And there's beautiful hiking trails there. And probably for the last month, I'm like, come on, you guys, let's go for a hike. Come on, you guys. And when they say no, I'm like, fine, no, we'll play video games or whatever. And I'm like, no, like I'm going to go, come or don't come. And the last couple days, 2 of them are coming. So it's like you just do it and maybe they follow you. And I don't know about like my younger ones, they want to do what I'm doing. So if I'm doing something healthy, they'll come and do it with me too. And so just like you said, just doing it for yourself. Like, how do we take care of our kids if we're not taking care of ourselves? And
Virginia, your hand's up.
Yes, I just wanted to share that the one like main thing that we have learned here in our household is acceptance. And it's awesome because acceptance will forever be, used throughout life. When my husband lost his, or not lost his job, but was furloughed, it was extremely difficult for him as a man, as the sole provider of the household. And he was devastated. And I told him, look, I still am working. It's okay. Like, it's out of our control. Like, there's nothing we can do. The kids were devastated. They have to do distance learning. You guys, at least the schools are doing stuff to kind of continue. Let's just adapt, and it's just learning to accept the way things are, accept the way things have turned out. And that's why I say it's taught us a lot. Just everybody has learned so many different things on everything because we've had to learn to accept and adapt like the way things have been. We're all in this together and it's affected everybody so much in so many different ways.
right. And for those of you that were in the talk that we did about radical acceptance, that's exactly what she said. It's, yeah, we have to accept it. It doesn't mean that we like it. It doesn't mean that we approve of it. It just means that we acknowledge the emotions that come with it and we do our best to move forward because there's so much stuff that's out of our control, and it's been a tough one for sure. I want to talk a little bit about our kids and their sparks. And there was some research done through the Search Institute, and they took a poll of 2,000 parents and children, and they asked the children what their spark was, and they asked the parent what their kid's spark was. And I think it was like 26% of them got it right. So we might be thinking that our kids are one spark, and it might be something completely different than we don't know of. So I want to challenge you guys later on today or during the week to explain to your kiddos what a spark is and if they even know what theirs is. And try to, have your own guess beforehand. You might know what your kid loves already. It might be totally obvious. But for most of us, it's not completely obvious. Sometimes it feels like they have a passion for nothing but their friends and video games and, watching TV or whatever. And so I challenge you to do that, to try to, figure out if because you might think you do and you might not. Like I might assume that my kid's is baseball and I could be totally off right now,
I gotta look back and see if I have the PDF. I know last year, one of the copies we talked about, and we did a little quiz on how well you know your kids. I'm gonna have to see if I can find that. And then I'll link it when I send out the recording.
No, that would be awesome. Because I remember doing it and being like,
yeah. And so we talked about it as the coffee, and I went home and I did it with my family. And I bring this up because my son literally brought it up last week. Like, hey, remember when we did that quiz and mom got all the answers wrong? She doesn't know us at all. And I was like, haha, it's so funny. Because I thought I totally I was like, oh, I'm gonna ace this. I did horrible. It was horrible.
Why do they love our failures? I don't understand. Maybe because we nag at them. I don't know. So, when you figure out what that spark is for your kid, or, and you might not figure it out, but I had another list I want to find. I didn't find it yesterday when I was looking for it, but it's basically activities to provide your child or give your kids opportunity to do that might evoke some sort of spark in them. For me, it was volunteering with the pet thing, or, just broadening their understanding of things that go on in the world. Again, maybe you have a family member or a friend who's really passionate into something that maybe you're not, and having them share that with your kid, but making sure that they have opportunity to see different things. My kid watches YouTube all day long about Fortnite. So I'm like, how is he finding passion in things? And, then I found out he had a YouTube channel where he was doing video game things. And it's something that he's crazy about right now. And, I'm not crazy about the time he spends on it, but I'm really trying to I guess, meet him where he is, So being a spark champion, again, it's like affirm the spark, model the spark, provide opportunities to express it. And this is a hard one when your kid's a gamer, because that would require you to ask questions that maybe you're going to get a very lengthy answer to that you're not interested in, but really being there to listen and hear them out, because it's probably going to change over time. Their spark's going to change. And if they know that you're the person that's going to actually listen to whatever they're passionate about, they're going to continue to talk to you about it, and you can continue to be that champion for them. It says run interference, help eliminate obstacles. Maybe they have obstacles in the way of pursuing the things that they want. Showing up, recitals, games, performances. I have this very vivid memory of my dad used to work at the San Jose airport. I played softball. My dad would get out of work at 2:00 and he would be at the softball field at 2:15 to watch us practice, to help us practice, showed up for every single game, showed up for every tournament, showed up for practices, brought the team Slurpees. Like, he was so there. And I give my mom a hard time now because she didn't really go to the softball games. And my memory of my mom, she gets so mad that I think about this, is 3rd grade. She showed up at my spelling bee. And it was one of those little spelling bees where you're up on the stage and you have this little number around your neck. And when you get your word wrong, they take your number away. So I was the first one to go. The word was among, and I spelt it with a U. And I watched my mom stand up and walk out. And I always give her a hard time of that. And we were talking about sparks one day, and I'm like, you were not a spark champion. And she gets mad. She's like, but I did everything else for you. I'm like, I still have the vision of you. And I had to sit up on the stage with no number for like an hour. And so I always give her a hard time that my dad was, anyways, this is a silly story, but being there for your kid. Like, one of the things I'm so grateful for is that my kids don't sing. Because like recitals of like singing, I'm like, oh, I don't know that I can handle it. I'm better at like watching sports. And so whatever it is, being there, if I have to watch a video game, like a Minecraft thing that's a big deal or whatever, I try. And just seeing my kid's face light up, knowing that I want to watch, is a big deal to him. And I think it's just setting that precedent of like, I'm here for you, whatever thing that you're into. One more.
Great about my son and his video games. Like, you can talk to him about it for a couple minutes, and like, then he'll just look at me and he's like, okay, you can go away now. I'm like, all right, good.
Yeah. My kids will call me out like, are you pretending to be interested? Are you social working me? I'm like, no. So final tips for adults is like, remember, their sparks can and will change over time. Young people need multiple adults to cheer them on, to teach them, expect ups and downs in your conversations. It's not always going to go smoothly. A skill is not automatically a spark. Maybe your kid's super good at math, but they're not crazy about it. And then there's one more thing I wanted to share. Okay, so this is just like the FAQs. Like, my teen's spark isn't practical. She feels passionate about creating visual art, but she won't be able to use it to make a living. It's natural to feel concerned about your teen's ability to make a living, but knowing that it's going to change, it might change, and it doesn't necessarily have to be their career. I had a family member come over. She's 15 years old and is super passionate about anime. And I don't know if you have kids who are into anime, but many of my clients at work are into anime, and I've never watched it. So I had to take care of my niece for a couple of days over the break, and she introduced me to anime. And I wasn't totally into it, but what I learned is the relationship dynamics between a lot of the characters are very intense and powerful. And so I started to know that, like, okay, maybe her spark isn't necessarily the anime, but it's like the human interaction and dynamic that she's witnessing. So I was trying to like go deeper with it, and it made a lot of sense of like why she might be interested in it. So try to dig deep. Like, maybe your kid might be a structural engineer one day because they like building their stuff in I mean, whatever it is, like, just trying to understand it better, ask questions about it. It might not be your thing, but let it be their thing, and really just like support that. because I think more than anything, it's about them knowing that you're there for them, no matter what their interests are, no matter what they do, no matter how well they do it. And I think that's, as parents, like our job to do. Okay,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end.
So, but I would definitely encourage my kids coming in. I mean, I would definitely encourage you all to not only look deeper into your own spark and make sure that you have the time and you're removing the obstacles to be able to do it, but really like talking to your kids and making sure that you know what it is. Maybe again, maybe you thought you knew what they were passionate about. I'm like half tempted to ask my kid right here what his is, and I'll be totally off and embarrass myself, so maybe I won't. But Owen, what's your passion? My guess is math.
Did he just say math?
He did. I said cats. He said,
yeah.
That is not my kid. I don't know. He's in 8th grade, and we had him test into the higher level math class this year, and he's like crazy about it. So, and he's good at it, and I don't know where that comes from. Not me nor my husband. So,
all right.
Challenge. Try it, because I just totally blew it.
I'm gonna go home.
Maybe you gotta look deeper into it. Maybe it's I don't know, adding more cats.
Right? Maybe. But he's already to the level in math where I can't help him. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys. This was a fun topic to get us back into our weekly meetings. And so next week, actually, the counselors are going to be here to answer questions that you have, because they are starting the process for making the schedules for next school year, for the 21-22 school year. Believe it or not, this is when we start thinking about next year. So if you have questions, and the counselors are doing a presentation for parents and students Tuesday night, and all the information that will be in my email, and I think the counselors have sent stuff out on School Loop also, but they will be here to answer any follow-up questions that you have. Okay,
I will be here. Thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.